Allow me to give you a quick overview about TechSoup. We are an international nonprofit organization that provides technical support and tech tools to nonprofits. Our focus is to help NGOs make a bigger impact in technologies. And to date, we've served over 1 million nonprofits across 236 countries. And to know more about our services, so you could definitely visit TechSoup.org. And allow me to introduce to you our speakers for today. He is Elijah van der Jensen. Eli loves to be a connector, bringing the community together. He's been a volunteer manager, an event producer, and a digital campaigner. Basically, he'll take any job that allows him to enable our group passionate people to join together to create meaningful relationships. Currently, he works as community manager with TechSoup producing events and supporting TechSoup Connect, hashtag Tech for Good chapters. With that said, I'll pass and hand over to you and welcome you, our speaker, Elijah van der Jensen.
Well, hi there, friends. How y'all doing? So obviously, you can't really reply, but you can definitely throw things into the chat, and the team from TechSoup Asia will read your replies out and sort of make sure that any questions you have get added here into the mix. Let me just fire up my slide. Click, click, click. Perfect. Here we go. So the topic for today's event is, what is TechSoup Connect? And because I'm the community manager for that program, I'm the person who can tell you all about it. So you've reached the right person. So who am I? Well, my name's Eli, and I'm based in Vancouver, Canada. And I got involved with TechSoup Connect about 13 years ago. I was new to the city, didn't really know anyone, and I was looking for a community. Where could I find the people who were passionate about technology and also passionate about changing the world? And when I found TechSoup Connect and a group of people who cared about those two things at the same time, I got really excited. Because these conversations are so important. Have you ever had a really exciting and inspiring conversation? Something that got you, just so jazzed up, so just hopping. You said, like, I got to tell everyone about this. This is going to change the path of my life. Yeah, see, Simon's had that, and I've had that too. And actually had that the first time I learned about TechSoup Connect, and actually about TechSoup. And I was like, well, that's got to be a scam. That can't be real. But here it is. It's real, and 13 years, here I am, because that conversation was so important to me. And I think we know that we are social animals. We know that conversations are super important. In person, online, we want to get together. We want to share stories. We want to share our skills. It's been a little tricky during some of this COVID time, but we have this need, and how do we meet it? So for me, the way I meet that need to have those interesting conversations and bring people together is I act as one of the volunteer hosts for the TechSoup Connect Western Canada chapter here in British Columbia. And so twice a month, I'm bringing together events and about 50 of our most loyal members to come together to support each other, share some good ideas, or learn a new skill. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I'm already in a webinar. I'm in a webinar here right now. How is this thing you're talking about anything different from any of the other webinars out there in the world? And there's lots of great webinars, including, of course, the ones here from TechSoup Asia. And what I would say to you is, TechSoup's webinars and everyone's webinars are great, but they don't scratch every single itch we have. especially because we're talking about all of Asia, you might get a great case study about something that happened in Singapore. You're like, that's great, but I'm in Indonesia. Like, it's totally different here. And also, these are big one-way webinars. You know, there's 200 of us, but it's only me getting to speak today. If you create a smaller, more personal event, you can actually start turning on the camera for everyone so we can really have a conversation, because we know everyone has so much to contribute. And we know that sometimes there's a topic you're like, that's great, but I don't care about that topic. I'm passionate about talking about Google ad grants. Why is there no event this month about that? And of course, maybe the event's in the wrong time zone or even in the wrong language. So that is why TechSoup created TechSoup Connect, because we wanted to meet that need of offering customizable, unique content that speaks directly to the needs of nonprofits in every community. And so this is the recipe, basically, for what is TechSoup Connect. So it is this global network of Tech for Good chapters. And what makes it special is, one, each chapter is run by a group of volunteers. They're going to have me as their cheerleader, but the major decisions are all going to happen from the local volunteer. The other thing is these are often monthly events. So it's not like a one-off conference. Rather, these are recurring events because we want to create communities and connection between people. The third thing is that the events are free to attendees and also to you, of course, as a host. And then the topics are always around something about technology for good. And they can be online or in person. And so that is really like the core of what makes this a TechSoup Connect event. And so these chapters are truly all over the world. There's currently 45 chapters in 32 countries, and there's about 32,000 of us operating currently in about 8 different languages. So where can you find these events? Where can I find these events that maybe speak to your specific needs and passions and interests? The answer is you go to the TechSoup Events Hub. And that's over at events.techsoup.org. And that's where you're going to go to find all of these interesting events. In fact, let me show you what that looks like. So if you went to events.techsoup.org, you'd find this beautiful website. And if you scroll down there, what you would see is a place where you can start searching. And so you can search for any city to sort of say, are there events close to me? And it will then filter down here to show me events that are in your community. So I'm in Vancouver, so I'm going to say, well, I'm in Vancouver. Let's see what happens. So you find your city, and there you go. It starts showing you your closest events. And that will work for anywhere in the world. As you scroll down, the other way you can find upcoming interesting events is you can search by chapter. And a chapter is basically a bucket of events run by one of these volunteers. So you can say, oh, well, I'm in, I don't know, Asia Pacific. Let me click here and see if there are any events right now, say from the Australia chapter. So I'll click in there. And then you'll see here is the page run by the volunteers, and you can see here are some of their upcoming events. And of course, unlike some of the TechSoup US events, these are all in much friendlier time zones. So that's something that's worth checking out. And just because it says this is the Australia chapter, anyone, of course, is welcome to join and register. And actually managing this tool is one of the things we would provide to you if you ever want to get more involved with the community, but you don't have to. There's many ways you can get engaged with what we do here at TechSoup Connect. So the real question is, what do these events look like? And they come in all kinds of flavors. So sometimes we're just going to go out together and socialize. This is a chance for people to get together, share some best practices, complain a little bit about their boss, and generally just sort of network. These are great events. This is where people have come into my events talked with someone and found a new job or found a new path for their career. These are really good social experiences. Or maybe you want to hold a panel conversation using the online platform we provide. That's another way the events can happen, where you can have big conversations or more published, like produced events with our online platform. Or maybe you're looking for like a big conference-y kind of event where people come together and all sort of, collaborate at their tables. Or maybe you're looking to create events where people actually just get one-on-one help, where people can come together in person or online and ask a question and get personalized direct help on any topic of interest. So what we're looking at here is actually something we called a social media tune-up, where people would come and sit down with you for half an hour, and we would pair people with experts on social media to answer any questions. So this is one of the ways we can offer that kind of support. So you're already, of course, deeply intrigued. You're like, yes, this TechSoup Connect thing sounds like it's going to solve all my problems. Well, how can you get involved with it? And so there are 3 ways that you can get involved. The first is you can go to events.techsoup.org and join one of the existing chapters. But maybe you feel like you've got an area of expertise. You've got something you want to share. Maybe you want to tell people what you learned when you built your last website. Maybe you want to tell people how you ran an A/B test with your last email campaign, and you want to show people how that's done. Maybe you want to talk about digital security and some of the best practices, because that's your area of expertise and passion. If that's the case, you can suggest an event, and I would pair you with an existing TechSoup Connect chapter, and you would come in and just do a one-off guest expert role, where you would come and present a webinar or offer some volunteer help to someone else. But what you really want to do, because it's the most fun, the most exciting part, the part I've been doing for 13 years, of course, so I'm obviously very sold on the idea, is you can host your own chapter, which means then you would be the person producing these events, creating a community, and really helping the nonprofit sector figure out, where does technology and digital fit into your cities, into your states, into your countries' nonprofits' needs. And so you're going to say, who are these TechSoup Connect chapter hosts? And right now there are about 100 of them in these other cities. Maybe they could be you one day. So these people are people who care about technology and social good, people who want to create these communities where they know that the best way for people to learn is for them to share and share their stories and their experiences. You're also likely a natural networker. You're someone who likes to talk with other people, introduce others, and sort of, make connections happen. And the last part is, maybe you're the kind of person who just likes to throw a party. You're a host. You're the person who wants to make people feel welcome. If that's you, you might be a TechSoup Connect chapter host. But why would you even want to be a chapter host? Sounds like a lot of work. And I'm not going to lie, it is a little bit of work, but also it's pretty fun. And I'll show you some of the ways of how I think it's super fun. So you want to become a chapter host because maybe you want to be seen as a leader in the nonprofit technology space. You want to start building a bit of a reputation. Maybe you're, just building up your career. Maybe you're a consultant looking to, find a way to build connections to other organizations. Maybe you're someone working at a nonprofit who wants to build connections with others in your sector. This is also a way for you to sort of become the connector, the person who knows all of the key nonprofit technology people in town. Once you've hosted 10 events, you now know all the local experts and they know you. And that's a really powerful thing, because when you can make these referrals and connections, people are going to come back to you with opportunities, with job opportunities. Keep giving to the community. Maybe you're someone who loves training. this is, again, a really great role for people to share their skills and what they've learned. And it's also a great way for you to connect with the other nonprofit tech geeks of the world. You can join those 100 other nonprofit tech meetup leaders. So you're intrigued, but now you're going to say, well, what do you actually do? Like, what is this all about? And so to be a chapter host, the first thing I ask is that you do at least 4 events per year. And it could be any of those interesting event formats I talked about, whether it's a social where you just go off to a local pub, or whether it's maybe doing a more formal webinar where you teach a skill. You're also going to become the go-to person for all the questions in the local nonprofit technology world. So next time someone's looking to hire someone, they're going to come to you. Next time someone's looking for a tool suggestion, they're going to start that conversation with you because you've built that trust. And the other part of it is you're going to be a supportive, welcoming person for all attendees. And, it's part of that host role. And I'm going to tell you about why I have been a host for 13 years. And honestly, it's because this is the only thing I do in my life where I get to make all the decisions. I don't have to ask anyone's permission to do things as a TechSoup Connect host. And unlike my job, unlike my family commitments, that's so liberating and exciting to me to have something I really own. Because as a chapter host, you're going to select the event topics. You're going to select the event presenters. You're going to decide when and where the event is going to be. All of that's on you. And so it's really something where you get to make the key decisions and shape the community. And I'll be there to support you. I'll be there with suggested event topics. I'll be there to poke you gently in the ribs if you ever get distracted. I'll be there to connect you with other experts and guest presenters. But ultimately, this is something that you own and control. And I think that is one of the funnest, best parts about being in this role. So TechSoup will be there, as I said, to help you. We've got event recipes, these templates that we've collected over the last 5 years. So you're not having to ever start from scratch. If you want to do an event about security, we've got a cut and paste event that you can just take out of our library. Similarly, with things around Google Ads or around how to host an online event, all these core skills are there in the library. We're also going to give you promotion across the TechSoup network. That can be sometimes through email, sometimes through social media, but we're going to make sure that our members, you who here in the webinar, know about the local event opportunities. We're also going to give you access to tools for both online and in-person events, so you don't need to worry about that. We'll provide the Zoom, we'll provide the events tool, we'll provide the email tools to make sure that this is easy for you to grow and manage your community. And also, as a token of our appreciation, every month we take one of the the paid courses, which are sometimes valued around $100 in the TechSoup course catalog, and we'll offer that to you because we're really grateful for your contributions as one of our community leaders. And so anyone can be a TechSoup Connect host. And I'm pretty serious about that. The events don't need to be in English, so you can deliver events in your local language, although it will be very helpful if you speak enough English to at least communicate with me as I onboard you into the process. You don't need to be working for a nonprofit to be in this role. You can be a volunteer, a student, a consultant, a technology expert, because what you're being here is a host. So you don't need to be the expert around any particular topic. You just need to be someone who's really curious. So you're going to go out there and recruit guest presenters, or maybe find someone who's interesting and interview them about what they learned as they have, added a new database to their nonprofit and how that helped with their fundraising. So these are the kinds of things you would do. And it typically takes, when we look at the time of the volunteer commitment, about 1 hour a week to build out these communities. So you would sort of put in about 1 hour a week, making some email introductions, putting out a couple tweets, scheduling in an email, and then once every month or two, you would host your event. And that would be, where you'd have your big explosion, bring the community together, host a conversation. But in between those events, it's just a small, couple minutes every couple days, just sort of keeping things moving forward. And so I think you should host your own community events. It is super fun. It's a way for you to build your reputation, give back to your community, and really find a nice social outlet, because it's going to attract there people who are going to be your natural friends, people who are geeks who also care about changing the world, which is why we're here at a TechSoup event. So I would encourage you, if you're curious, go to events.techsoup.org, check it out, and see if that TechSoup Connect opportunity is a good fit for you. And that is my 20-minute-ish overview of the program. Now I'm going to pass it back to our host for the day, and we'll go into the Q&A moment.
Thank you, Eli. And thank you for that lovely presentation. We have questions from our Q&A tab coming from Simon Dickinson. This question is there a plan to drive up chapters in Southeast Asia region? So from ASEAN, only one in the Philippines.
So Simon, I appreciate your honesty that you're not ready to volunteer right now, which is totally fair. So the answer to that, Simon, is that's a major part of why we're hosting this meeting today, is because I want to introduce this idea of TechSoup Connect across the Asia Pacific region. Right now, you're right, there are not that many active chapters right now. I think in Asia right now, there's sort of an active chapter in Australia and the Philippines, but we are looking to sort of build that, and we're going to build that in two ways. We're going to find a couple people who are interested in joining committees, and usually those committees are up to 3 people who are sort of the event leaders, the chapter leaders, the people who will manage that group. And so that's part of what we'll be recruiting, which means people won't have to be in this role alone, because we're hoping to actually get, in many of our countries and territories, several people who can come together and sort of manage the chapter together. So that's the goal. And once we have those chapters up and running and starting to produce events, then we'll definitely come back to the community and let people know about other ways they can get engaged and start promoting those events.
Thank you very much for that, Eli. Another question is from Kumar Lopez. Do you need to be a techie to lead, or just a person leads the network?
I would say what we're really looking for is a leader, a host. So you don't need to be a techie. I am no techie. I can't program things. I can't fix a broken computer. My skills are I can start a Zoom event, and I can answer emails, and I can introduce people to each other. So I would say you don't need to be a techie for this role. The key thing is that you're curious, which means you're willing to go and reach out to a friend of a friend and say, I hear you did this very interesting thing. Can we just have a 15-minute chat and see if it would be a great fit for us to feature in an upcoming event? And you don't even have to be on camera at all as the host. You can recruit someone else who can play the role of being the on-camera voice. And so you could really be like the invisible producer, if that's where your comfort is, or you can be the person on camera doing doing the introductions just like Jerson did today, or even you can be sometimes, if you do have something you want to share, the guest expert of that day. So you can play any of those 3 roles, but it's certainly, I don't think of this as a technical role.
Thank you, and hope that helps, Kumar Lopez. Another question, Eli, from Papua New Guinea, from Ruben Kennefer. What is the possibility of having a chapter in Papua New Guinea, in their country?
So the answer is, it all happens when you put your hand up. So that's the way this community works. Because it's all run by volunteer champions, it doesn't happen until we find one or two people who say, I want this to happen, and I'm going to make it happen. And so if you're interested, maybe you or a group of your friends can apply, and then we could go through the application process. The answer is, I definitely want one of these chapters in Papua New Guinea, but this isn't something where we've got like a foundation paying for people's time to make it happen. It only happens when people, like the people here in this webinar, say, yes, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to own that responsibility.
Thank you. And another question, Eli, from Nancy Soon. This must not be relevant to you. How would you help them? How to find volunteers to help?
Yeah. So I think there are a couple ways to support this. So the first thing is, a chapter usually needs a person to take the leadership role, to say like, I will start it. And because we all know that people are shy, you always need to have someone else go first, and then everyone else follows behind. So what I'd love is, we need to find some people who are those brave people, the people who say, I'm going to put my hand up first, and then we know other people will follow with after you, because that's how most people are. And so we're going to support you once you have your first chapter. We're going to help you create those events. We're going to help you promote these into the TechSoup community, and we're going to help you with recruitment of some of the guest experts. But you'll also want to work your own network, because I think sometimes the best place for us to find volunteers is the people we know already. So reach out to your friends and give them just a little poke in the shoulder and say, I think this is going to be something you're going to like.
Thank you, Eli. From Antonio Lianes, do you have chapter who works for persons with disability, digital accessibility, so inclusions and exclusive development? So he is totally blind person from A3 or APRAV in the Philippines.
So that's a great question. I would say our events platform is not fully accessible right now. It's gone through some tests to be partially in support for people with limited like sight. But I would say right now, it is a little bit of a limitation that the events platform we use will only get you halfway there. So I think it could potentially work, but you would likely want to find a partner to help you with some parts of managing the events platform.
Thank you, Eli. And from Laura, how do we apply? And what's the application process looks like?
Oh, this is my favorite question. Yes, yes, I want that question. So the answer is, you go to events.techsoup.org, which of course is right there in the chat. And from there, you'll see there's a link at the top saying host an event. So from there, you start the application process and you fill out a very brief form. What happens when you fill out that form is then I follow up and ask you to schedule a 30-minute call with me. And that 30-minute call is for us to just talk about what your plans are for the event, who your connections are in the community, what kind of support you need, and also just to make sure that you're a good fit for the community. Once you have finished that call with me, I give you a little bit of homework. And your homework is to outline the first 3 events, which would be sort of the time, the date, and the topic. Now, you don't need to know who the presenter is going to be. You don't need to have like the full description. You just need to have a rough sense of, I want to do an event, say, about Google AdWords, and I want to do it on next September. And once you've got that rough outline for your first 3 events, we have one more meeting. And what we do is we use that time to train you on our events platform. And during that meeting, we publish your first event. And so once you published your first event, now you're live and you can start marketing and promoting your event through your community. And we, of course, at TechSoup will also support with the marketing and promotion. And after that has happened and you published your first event, from there, you're actually very independent. You will be able to post future events directly in the platform. You'll be able to message all the members who've joined your chapter already. And you'll be able to sort of keep things growing really largely independently. I would say half of the volunteers in network might go one whole year without even talking to me, because once you've got a chapter up and running, it kind of just has its own momentum, and I'm just going to get in your way.
Thank you, Eli. From Ritu Dharmawan, I think this was explained before, but how to join and initiate and organize an event on a local chapter, any technical procedure. His background is geopathial tech.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of technical pieces. The key thing is that we go through those core process, which is to say, let's outline those first 3 events to make sure that we're aligned around the events being for technology for good, have a nonprofit audience. And then from there, the key technical thing will be the training on the events platform. But I typically find that takes about half an hour. It's quite an easy platform that manages it itself, has a lot of its own automatic reminders. It will remind people a lot of meetup.com.
Thank you. From Emmanuel Areno, is there a local TechSoup chapter in the Philippines, especially in Visayas region, Eli?
So there is a chapter, but I would say it's not very active right now. It's had one event in the last couple of months. So the leader of that chapter for the Philippines is currently looking to bring in maybe 2 other co-leaders, people who can commit to hosting, probably because you have multiple chapter leaders, 2 events per year. So it's not a huge ask, but we are looking for people to join the existing Philippines chapter to host both online and in-person events. So this is a great opportunity. And because there's an existing chapter, you don't have to start from scratch.
Thank you. Follow-up questions as well. In New South Wales, Australia, do we have chapter there as well?
So right now, there is just a chapter for all of Australia. During COVID, we actually merged 3 different Australian chapters into one. And so right now, there is quite an active Australia-wide chapter, and that works well for the online events. We are certainly welcome to have people with a more regional focus coming into this who want to host, say, in-person events or online events for like a state like New South Wales. So definitely reach out, and I would love to connect you both with the existing chapter leadership and also have that discussion about whether it makes sense to create a sub-chapter with a more regional focus. And I think that applies as well for the person who was interested in the Philippines.
Okay, we have more questions on the Q&A tab, Eli. One of that is, how much does it cost, from Emmanuel Areno again, how much does it usually cost for nonprofit to host this community? What are the necessary digital technology needed? So from iCode NGO Network from Iloilo, Philippines.
Yeah. The answer is no money. And that goes both ways. So TechSoup isn't able to offer any stipends or money to help people with their chapters, but we also have like no charges to you as hosts, because honestly, if you're hosting one of these chapters, you're helping TechSoup in our core mission, which is to help nonprofits build their technology skills. So I'm going to be there being your biggest cheerleader. I would never charge you money for that because you're doing amazing work. And I'm going to tell you about that every day. So there's no costs around it. What we do to provide some assistance around this is, in addition to some of the marketing support we talked about, we also have access to some core tools. So we have an online events management tool that we give free access to all the TechSoup Connect hosts. And in addition, we also have access to a Zoom room. So that's another tool available at no cost to chapter hosts.
Thank you, Eli. I do have a questions from my end, Eli. Can we collaborate with other nonprofit organizations if we want to organize an event?
I would almost insist upon it. So yes, please. I think because we're looking to build a community, and especially at the beginning, our networks are always going to be a little bit smaller. Partnered events are a great way to grow your community. And so to find a group of people who are already coming together and to do an event together, it is a really good idea. So for me, I've partnered with the Association of Fundraising Professionals on a conversation around digital fundraising. I partnered with the Microsoft Power BI meetup group, who was hosting events on data visualization. And we did an event around how nonprofits can use data visualization. And so, yeah, it's one of the best ways for you to find the expert who you might want to bring into your event is to find a community on Meetup or someplace like that that's already coming together and has like a lot of expertise, and have those people come in to your event so you can connect them with your nonprofit audience.
Okay, thank you. I think this is a good question from Amy D. Is there a quota or maximum number per country for chapters?
So that's a great question. I would say there is no maximum on the chapter. So when we think about attendees, let's just start there. So for attendees, we have groups that meet with like groups of 3 people because they just want to do one-on-one support in their events. And we have others that have 200 people coming into their events, and both styles are great. And how you decide on what style is best is you get to ask yourself as a volunteer, what style am I most excited about? Do I want to have a big like webinar style event, or do I want to have smaller conversations? As for the working within a chapter, we find that chapter teams have sort of a core group making most of the decisions, and it's usually about a maximum of 3 people. We find that when that core group becomes more than 3 people, now suddenly you spend half your time managing that group and having committee meetings, and you don't get as much time on actually delivering your community meetings. But what will happen is more and more people will volunteer and want to get involved with your chapter. And so those are people who you would bring into other roles. So for my own chapter in Vancouver, I've got 2 other groups of people who contribute. Some of those people are people who usually produce just like one event as a guest expert a year. And so they do this every year, and it's part of their ongoing support. And then I have other people who support around marketing. So I have one person who writes a blog post about every event and posts it to our blog. And I have another 2 people who are always chat moderators for my events, and they contribute in that way. So there's a lot of different roles for people to get involved. But I would be cautious about growing your organizing key group beyond about 3 people.
Okay. I think these are some of the questions coming from different organizations. So we've been receiving 3 or 4 questions, which is, will TechSoup helps to promote their events?
So yeah, I mean, if you host those events within the TechSoup Connect umbrella, so you use that platform, and as an organization, you can bring your own identity into this. So if you're an existing organization and you want to host TechSoup Connect events, but you also want to recognize the time and effort of your organization, you can add your organization's logo and any other sponsor logos onto your chapter page. You can actually include your name and link in your event description and in your chapter description. So you can make sure that your organization gets recognition and support there. And sorry, can you just repeat that question again? I think I lost my way there.
That's okay. They're actually from Philippines, and they wanted to promote specific events. So will TechSoup will be promoting some of the topics, or in terms of the marketing campaigns for this specific events?
Yeah, so the answer is TechSoup will definitely promote the events. What happens is when you post an event onto your specific chapter, it gets surfaced onto the global events hub at events.techsoup.org. And from there, it's searchable and promoted out to our global audience of nonprofits. We'll also offer social media support, and depending on the timing in the country, we can sometimes offer some email support. That is something that needs to sort of, each chapter will have a conversation with the TechSoup partner in their country. So in your case, I would introduce you to the TechSoup Philippines team, who would be able to sort of say, is there room in their existing newsletters and calendars to offer some promotional support? But it's not something I can promise. It's always something we need to sort of have a conversation around.
Thank you. Two more questions, Eli. From Amy D, what topics are you highly recommended for events? Are there topics that should be avoided?
It all depends. Like I would have said to you last week that security topics are just too boring and no one will show up for them. And then TechSoup just had a webinar that had over 500 people register for a security themed event. So I don't actually know, but I would say you want to always start with broad topics that apply to every organization. And so one of the most popular topics is, come on, brain, is to do something around social media. So we always find that that is going to be the most successful topic. So to do something on a topic like how to use Canva to create graphics for social media, that's going to be a big hit because everyone wants to learn how to create graphics for the social media. So those are a great example. And what you're looking at here is one of the resources we offer to event hosts, where we actually have this catalog of event templates that offer you tips on how to create an event. So say you wanted to do something about design for non-designers. Well, you go in here and you'd sort of see, here are some of the key ingredients I would offer as suggestions. And in this one, you'll see it's got actually even like, here's where you cut and paste the description. Here's the graphic for the event page. And sometimes there's usually a video or a sample slide used to present that event. And you'll also see in this one, we even have some short video tutorials. So if you couldn't find a presenter who wanted to talk on Canva, you would actually just sort of play these video clips and then have a conversation with people and offer some tips afterwards. So there's a number of different ways, but yeah, some of the best, most popular topics, I'll refer to you as part of your onboarding process.
Thank you, Eli. I think this question is based on the support that they need. So they wanted to do an event in Indonesia. Is there someone from TechSoup that can speak Indonesian or can support in terms of the trainings?
So that's a great question. I think there is often the ability to have, from time to time, a member of the core TechSoup staff participate in your event. I certainly am often joining some of the online events to talk a little bit about TechSoup as part of an introduction. And I suspect the TechSoup Asia team would be pretty excited to introduce you to one of the representatives in Indonesia, but I can't make promises for the team, of course. They run their own show, but I suspect the answer to that would be yes.
Thank you, Eli. I think one of the last questions that I would like to raise, because we've been receiving questions in terms of the local or coordinator per region or per country. Would you elaborate who to contact, who to connect each of the countries, especially in the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Australia, Eli?
I'm going to be honest with you. This is a one-man program, so it's all me, which means sometimes we're going to have to work a little bit. So I actually have call times available on Tuesdays and Thursdays, very early for me to be useful for Africa and Asia. Other days, on my Wednesdays and Mondays, I have call times around this time of day, again, for a conversation. So I'll be your global support person for all of the chapters. Once you become an active chapter, one of the things I will do is I will introduce you and connect you to the local TechSoup, whatever your country is, representative. So, either TechSoup Asia or maybe, the TechSoup representative in that other country, whether that might be Japan or Australia or Singapore.
Okay, I think some of the questions, Eli, so we will answer them internally. We will send it via email as well. Some of the questions here, like the same questions that they brought up earlier. So we definitely share it to you, Eli. Then we would be happy if you can, answer it and send it to them within the day or two.
Perfect. Well, then, thank you all so much for your time and your interest, and also, being excited about this idea of you bringing together nonprofits to talk about technology and digital and how we can use those to help nonprofits make more good happen in the world. So if you're interested, go check out events.techsoup.org. Maybe you just register for an event. Maybe you have one idea you want to volunteer, or maybe you want to bring people together because the idea of being that connector sounds like something you'd enjoy.
And we have the TechSoup Connect link here on the chat. So feel free to visit the page for more information. Okay. Thank you very much, Eli, for the lovely presentation. And we hope to do another session on this. And again, thank you everyone for joining and participating for this first TechSoup Connect webinar. Have a good day and stay safe.